Also, if we could just turn our attention to the children of the Clever Origin Junior School who are ready to perform for us in song. The song is titled Moving Together. The children are on the balcony up above if you want to have a look.
African Development Community, oh Sahara and many others. We thank you for developing the African economy. Ooh, asante.
Moving together as one people. United we are. Moving together as one people.
Thank you very, very much to the children of the Clever Origins School with such gumption and energy, reminding us that the children are the hope of the future, and the message so important for this 11th Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. We're moving forward as one people, as we all come together here in Uganda. So may I begin by saying, Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, I'd like to say Jambo, Karibu Sana, Bonjour, Salamno, Marhaba, Assalamu Alaikum, the warmest welcome to this 11th Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. My name is Lerato Mbele, and I'm going to be moderating some of the sessions this morning and over the coming days, and I want to thank you so much for the opportunity and the privilege of coming to this beautiful pearl of Africa alongside you. Allow me to acknowledge our dignitaries and most distinguished guests this morning. Our host in this Republic of Uganda is His Excellency the President of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. May I also recognize with appreciation His Excellency Emerson Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, who is also here as the Chairperson of SADC. May I also acknowledge President William Ruto of Kenya and Chair of the East African Community, represented by the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury and Economic Planning, Honourable John Mbadi Ngongo. Might I also acknowledge the President of Equatorial Guinea, represented by the First Deputy Prime Minister of that country, Gaudencio Mohaba Mesu. May I also recognize former heads of state who have presided over the Africa Leadership Forum that preceded today's forum. And in doing so, I acknowledge the former President of Tanzania and the patron of the Africa Leadership Forum, His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete. And might I also acknowledge a co-sponsor of that Africa Leadership Forum, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, His Excellency Hailemariam Desalegn. Also coming in all the way from New York City is Mr. Robert Ray, the President of ECOSOC. And then please can I acknowledge all of you, Honourable Ministers of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. You are warmly welcomed to this 11th Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. The theme for this year, you would be au fait with it by now, is driving job creation and economic growth through sustainable, inclusive, science and evidence-based solutions for the SDG 2030 and also in pursuance of the AU's Agenda 2063 and the second phase of the implementation. As we contemplate the theme, I'm reminded of something that Mark Twain once said, which is continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. We live in an imperfect world, this we know, but we don't have the luxury of waiting for the world to become perfect. In our quest for that perfection, we have to keep improving with the tools and the talents at our disposal. And we know that 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been identified as tools that can improve the world, making it more equitable, healthier, cleaner, eradicating poverty, giving women a leg up, an opportunity to rise and to thrive. These ambitious targets have to be achieved by the year 2030, exactly 5 years from now. And so the clock is ticking. And the citizens of the world, these young children, they are watching. And there's an urgency that's needed. And so the 11th Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development has been curated in such a way as to really galvanize the goals that will help us get to the 2030 target and start to actualize the broader dreams and the aspirations of Agenda 2063 with urgency, with deliberate actions for people, for the planet, and for our shared prosperity. And so over the next few days, there's an emphasis on the commitment to SDG 3 and 5, which is healthier, more productive nations, but also recognizing and valuing the contribution of women. There's also the importance of incorporating SDG 14 into public policy, which is life below water, because we know that 70% of the Earth's surface is ocean and waterways. And then we know that we need to do more to advance SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And you, as Ministers of Finance, Economic Development and Planning, are the custodians of this very SDG 8, because some of the policies and incentives you introduce can really stimulate growth, unlock much needed jobs, and then also employment equity policies that protect those jobs. Partnerships matter, and they're embedded in SDG 17. And so as we talk about how to do it, as the young children have told us, we do it together. And even though there have been many criticisms of the multilateral world, we have seen it's tried and tested. When we work together, regionally and globally, we can get things done. And so I wish you a successful conference over the next few days as we really apply our minds as to how to get to that 2030 target and how to really breathe life into the second phase of the implementation of Agenda 2063. As we officially begin the session, I'm going to hand over the podium to the Honourable Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, the Minister of ICT here in the Republic of Uganda, who's going to facilitate this opening session of our morning. And so please, could you warmly welcome Dr. Chris Baryomunsi.
Thank you very much, my sister. Your Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, and our chief guest this morning, and Mama Janet Museveni, the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports in the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency Emerson Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, present here. Permit me also to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania, representatives of heads of state and the governments present here, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, Right Honourable Robin Anabanja, the Honourable Ministers present, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We take the opportunity to welcome you once again to the Republic of Uganda, and would like to request you, when I say feel at home, I'm not sure how your homes are, but feel at Munyonyo, Kampala, the Pearl of Africa, and we want to welcome all of you. My name is Chris Baryomunsi. I am the Minister in charge of ICT and National Guidance, the Republic of Uganda, and I will take you through the next program where we are going to receive presentations from our various dignitaries and ending with a keynote address from the President of the Republic of Uganda. But before I invite the first speaker, we have a short video presentation which I would like to be played, and then it will usher us into the next presentation. Our technical team, please, could you play the short video and give us the message on the screen.
Uganda, a land of hidden treasures, home to over 50% of the world's mountain gorillas, 600 plus bird species, and more than 1,000 mammal species. Welcome to Uganda, a land of breathtaking beauty and boundless generosity, nestled in the heart of East Africa, where nature thrives and culture inspires. In 2015, Uganda stepped onto the global stage as President of the United Nations General Assembly, rallying 193 nations behind the historic adoption of the 2030 Agenda.
The theme of the Assembly is, in quotes, the Sustainable Development Goals, a universal push to transform our world.
The government of Uganda, in partnership with the United Nations, established a dedicated National SDG Secretariat in 2019 to strengthen coordination through a robust, multi-stakeholder National SDG Coordination Framework. Guided by a clear implementation roadmap, the framework is brought to life through 5 technical working groups, driving efforts in planning and mainstreaming, data generation, financing, communication, coordination, monitoring and reporting. The third National Development Plan is 95% aligned with the SDGs. The National Development Plan 4 is 100% aligned to the SDGs. Uganda has increased SDG data coverage from 45 indicators in 2016 to 95 indicators in 2020, 119 indicators in 2022, to 139 in 2024, and to 144 in 2025, produced 3 voluntary national reviews and multiple annual progress reports, and intensified SDG localization. In the remaining period to 2030, our efforts are being guided by the 6 national commitments for SDG acceleration and transformation. Uganda has, over the years, strengthened the healthcare system that effectively supports both preventive and curative services through investing in capacity building to produce a skilled health workforce, upgrading health infrastructure, and establishing strong primary and community health services. The decreasing rates of maternal mortality ratio from 336 in 2022 to 207 in 2024, neonatal mortality rate, infant mortality rate from 46 in 2022 to 34 deaths in 2024 serve as evidence of the strengthened healthcare system. In addition to other factors, the improvements in the health sector have also led to a significant improvement in gender equality. In addition, there are several significant appointments of women to senior leadership roles and cabinet positions. Other initiatives include integrating gender equality into legal and policy frameworks, implementing gender-responsive budgeting, providing high-quality gender data and statistics, and running programs to address gender-based violence. The government of Uganda is implementing various programs such as the GROW project, aimed at responding to the needs of women entrepreneurs who want to grow their businesses and create more jobs. The other interventions are Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, Special Enterprise Grant for Older Persons, Senior Citizens Grant, Special Grant for Persons with Disabilities, and the Agricultural Credit Facility, among others. Building on these strides in gender empowerment, Uganda is also prioritizing the potential of its youthful population as a critical engine for inclusive growth and transformation. With one of the youngest populations in the world, as 49.5% of its citizens are under 18 years, the government of Uganda is keen on the productivity of youth to effectively play their part in the economic transformation of Uganda in industrial skilling and innovation. The government has implemented the Industrial Development Strategy 2018-2028, established the Uganda Development Bank to provide financing for strategic sectors, launched initiatives such as the Presidential Initiative on Industrial Development and the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Program to support entrepreneurship and innovation, invested in infrastructure development, promoted public-private partnerships. In complement to these economic efforts, Uganda is also intensifying actions to safeguard its natural resources, particularly its vital aquatic ecosystems. The country's sustainable fishery production is estimated to be 500,000 metric tons. The government continues to improve the fisheries and aquaculture management information system. These environmental and resource management challenges, partnerships and collective action remain central to Uganda's development journey. Through partnerships, the country is delivering on transformative results. These domestic and multilateral partnerships by Uganda have demonstrated strong leadership in advancing African integration. As a way forward, through active implementation of the African Union and regional economic blocs initiatives, Uganda is firm in its promise to contribute to the development of Africa. The Kampala Declaration at the 11th African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development is expected to highlight these efforts as a model for the continent towards Africa's path to unity, prosperity, and peace in alignment with Agenda 2063. This journey towards sustainable development is a testament to Uganda's commitment to building a future where every citizen thrives and Africa rises together.
Yeah, thank you very much, and once again, welcome to Uganda. Your Excellencies, Africa as a continent has gone through a lot of phases in terms of how it has transformed. We had a period of slave trade that ran for close to 400 years. That was repressed by colonialism, which we had for 70, 80 years. And we saw the struggle for independence and self-rule in the 60s, 70s, and for some countries in the early 90s. And Africa later on stabilized, and we are now pushing on with the transformation. Your Excellencies, the meeting gathered here in the 11th session of the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development, where we are discussing the Sustainable Development Goals and also looking at Agenda 2063, where we are discussing the Africa we want. The government of Uganda and the Economic Commission for Africa, in the collaboration with the African Union Commission, the African Development Bank, the organizations of the United Nations system, and other stakeholders are hosting this 11th session of the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. So we are discussing the transformation of Africa with a focus on the 17 SDGs. Let me just remind the audience, as I invite the first speaker, that when you look at the map of Africa, the way it is shaped as a question mark, with Madagascar as a dot. In other words, the continent is asking us questions, we as leaders of the continent, that how are you going to transform the continent and improve the quality of life of the people? That's the question put to us by the way the African continent is shaped, which looks like a question mark. And with that, let me take the opportunity to invite the Honorable Minister of the Economy and Finance of the Republic of Mauritania, who is also the chair of the outgoing bureau, Your Excellency Sid Ahmad Oudbo, to come and give us your opening statement. Your Excellency.
Bonjour tout le monde. Son Excellence, M. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, président de la République de l'Ouganda. Son Excellence, Madame Rubina Nabanja, Première ministre de la République de l'Ouganda. Son Excellence, M. Bobraye, président du Conseil économique et social. Son Excellence, M. Mahmoud Ali Youssouf, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Où sont les représentants? Madame Amina Mohamed, vice-secrétaire générale des Nations Unies. M. Claver Gatete, secrétaire général adjoint des Nations Unies et secrétaire exécutif de la Commission économique pour l'Afrique, membres du corps diplomatique, représentants des organisations et agences spécialisées des Nations Unies et autres partenaires de développement, représentants du secteur privé, des organisations de la société civile, des grands groupes et d'autres parties prenantes, distingués délégués, mesdames et messieurs. Au nom du bureau de la 10e session du Forum régional africain sur le développement durable, ainsi que du gouvernement de la République islamique de la Mauritanie et à mon nom personnel, j'ai l'insigne honneur de vous adresser ces quelques mots à l'occasion de l'ouverture de la 11e session de notre forum. Permettez-moi tout d'abord d'exprimer notre profonde gratitude à son Excellence M. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, au gouvernement et au peuple ougandais pour leur hospitalité exemplaire et pour avoir accueilli ce forum. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous exprimons également notre reconnaissance aux États membres pour la confiance qu'ils ont placée à notre bureau en nous confiant la responsabilité de diriger les travaux de la 10e session du Forum. Le bureau, composé de la Mauritanie, de la Namibie, du Tchad, de l'Ouganda et du Niger, a travaillé activement à la réalisation de notre agenda commun. Je tiens à féliciter et remercier les membres du bureau ainsi que le secrétaire exécutif de la CA, M. Gatete, et le secrétariat du Forum pour leur soutien inestimable. Notre mandat a été marqué par des avancées significatives. Les bureaux et les secrétariats ont participé au forum politique de haut niveau sur le développement durable et au sommet de l'avenir. Ils ont veillé à ce que les messages clés du forum soient pris en compte dans la déclaration ministérielle et le document final du sommet, notamment le pacte pour l'avenir, le pacte numérique mondial et la déclaration sur les générations futures. Par ailleurs, des progrès notables ont été réalisés dans le développement des politiques minières transformatrices dans les pays riches en ressources, la mise en œuvre des plans d'action pour l'économie verte, bleue et circulaire et le renforcement d'un marché régional du carbone à haute intégrité. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, les défis pour atteindre le programme 2030 et l'agenda 2063 en Afrique restent immenses. Le rapport 2024 sur les objectifs du développement durable révèle que seules 10 des 144 cibles seront atteintes d'ici 2030, tandis que 106 exigent une accélération et 28 montrent des signes de régression. Ces difficultés sont exacerbées par une croissance économique insuffisante, le surendettement et les chocs extérieurs. Notre thème, stimuler la création d'emplois et la croissance économique grâce à des solutions durables, inclusives et fondées sur la science et sur des données probantes pour la mise en œuvre du programme de développement durable à l'horizon 2030 et l'agenda 2063, l'Afrique que nous voulons de l'Union africaine nous appelle à agir concrètement. Par conséquent, je vous invite à concentrer nos délibérations sur les priorités suivantes. Le renforcement de la mobilisation des ressources nationales pour le financement du développement, l'intensification du commerce intra-africain et les chaînes de valeur régionales, l'amélioration de la gouvernance et la promotion de la paix, la création des opportunités économiques surtout pour les jeunes et les femmes, l'accélération de la transition verte et de la lutte contre les changements climatiques, et enfin l'adaptation des cadres de mise en œuvre pour une exécution intégrée et efficace du programme 2030 et du deuxième plan décennal de mise en œuvre de l'agenda 2063. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, cette année est décisive pour le développement durable. La 4e conférence internationale sur le financement du développement en Espagne et le 2e sommet mondial pour le développement social au Qatar sont des opportunités pour défendre les intérêts de l'Afrique. Je vous invite à mettre à profit notre forum pour saisir ces opportunités. Je vous souhaite des délibérations fructueuses et vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, the Chair of the Outgoing Bureau, for your remarks. Can we give him another round of applause for his remarks? I now take the pleasure to invite His Excellency Robert Ray, the President of the Economic and Social Council and Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations. Your Excellency Robert Ray.
Mr. President and President of Zimbabwe and other ministers who are here, Mr. Chairman, let me thank you for your very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking the children who are still here, sitting in the balcony, for their wonderful song this morning. As a sometime singer myself, I will not do that this morning. I want to say how much I enjoyed the opportunity to listen to you. I was in Nairobi yesterday going to a project in Matare, and I was greeted with singing, so it was wonderful to hear it again this morning. I'm very honored to be able to join all of you, and particularly want to thank my good friend Claver Gatet for organizing the 11th Congress, which we're having, and for the continual work that he has done, in my experience, in raising the issues and the importance of what is happening in Africa and what more needs to happen. I think we all need to be very clear that unless we can take some extraordinary additional measures, we will not make the progress on the SDGs that we need to make. I want to congratulate President Museveni and his team for not only this conference, but for the ongoing work on the SDGs, which is such an important path to development, not only for Uganda and for Africa, but for the whole world. And I congratulate him very much for that. And I think all of us at the United Nations also recognize that Africa is at the center now of the ideas, of the initiatives, and of the actions that are going to make sure that the rescue of the SDGs, in fact, is something that happens. Of course, we have to look beyond 2030. We have to know that things don't stop in 2030, but we need to know that the progress that we are making now, sometimes as difficult as it is, and I will talk about that in a moment, is something that we need to continue to work on together. First, let's have a reality check on the headwinds that we are facing. The climate crisis, which is ongoing and which will be ongoing for the rest of my lifetime and for the lifetime of every single person in this room. And let me say, as the president of ECOSOC, climate change is not a theory. Climate change is not an ideology. Climate change is science. Climate change is fact. And it is dealing with these facts and this science that we must come together in helping countries to adapt to the changes that are already taking place and in dealing with the great emissions that continue to come from industrialized countries that continue to contribute to the climate crisis. I have to say, as a representative of Canada, that the arbitrary cuts that have been made in development assistance by a number of countries, as well as the entirely unnecessary and painful tariff attacks, which are having potentially such a disastrous effect on global growth and economic justice. We have to face these challenges together. And as I say, as a representative from Canada, I can tell you directly, we know something about tariff attacks these days. Our territorial integrity as a country has been questioned. Our nationhood has been questioned. And we know, as do all of you, the right to sovereignty is built into the Charter of the United Nations, and the right to economic and social justice and to freer trade is built into our Charter and everything that we stand for and have been fighting for together. I want to say to you, many Africans here, I say to all of you, your struggle is not only your struggle. The struggle you are facing is a struggle faced by everyone in the world. And above all, in difficult times, we must reaffirm the value of one simple thing, and that is solidarity. The solidarity we must show with each other, and the solidarity we have to show in our work, in everything that we do. We know the challenges are great. We know the gap between the finances that are necessary and the finances that are there is great. We know that that is a gap that will affect the ability to fight climate change, to deal with adaptation, to lift people out of poverty, to make sure that girls and boys can go to school, that we can find the way to social justice and to better services, and most importantly, find the way to prosperity. We know that gap exists. But we must also look to our own resources, each and every one of us. We cannot take anything for granted. We cannot assume that others will solve our problems for us. And we all know that if we help ourselves, we're more likely to get help from others as we need to move forward. We're coming up to some important meetings in the ECOSOC cycle and in the cycle of the United Nations. And these are meetings, you know, we have a great many meetings. And sometimes people wonder, well, what actually happens at these meetings? Do we advance the causes? Do we take the steps that are required? The meeting that is going to take place in Spain in July is an important one, because it is a meeting where we will be making some important decisions on how we go forward in this critical issue of finding the ways to finance development. Financing will come from donor countries. Yes, it must continue to do so. It will also come from private capital and private investment, and business not only from outside Africa, but businesses inside Africa and inside every country. It must come from the mobilization of domestic resources. When we look at those countries that have succeeded in achieving such significant growth over the last 25 years, in each and every case, it has come from governments themselves making difficult decisions and being able to mobilize the resources and the savings that are required to make progress. So I just want to say in close, Mr. President, in thanking you very much for this invitation, the importance that we attach in ECOSOC to the meetings that are upcoming, but not just to the meetings that are upcoming, to the decisions that we must make. It is not good enough for us alone to say that we would like to see something happen. It is not good enough for us alone to say we want something to happen. It is important for us to know that we need to make something happen. And so, if I may, let me close with a story, short, not a long one, about someone whose life has been very difficult and nothing is going right. And he now feels he has no obligation, no other alternative but to turn to the Almighty for assistance. And he says, God, please let me win the lottery. I need to win the lottery. And if I win the lottery, then everything will go well. Week after week after week after week, he repeats this prayer. And one time, after making the prayer, the skies open up, and a loud voice comes down, and he can hear it clearly. And it says, "Dear sir, you have to buy a ticket. You have to buy a ticket." And that is what we all know to be true in our own lives. If you want to succeed, you have to buy the ticket. In this little school I visited yesterday in Matari, there was a slogan on the wall. And the slogan was this one, which I thought was so great for children, but not only for children, for all of us. It said, "The bridge between hope and achievement is discipline." We know what we have to do. We know the steps we must take. We just need to do them. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Thank you very much, the President of the Economic and Social Council, for your remarks. I now take the opportunity to invite His Excellency Moses Velakati, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment of the African Union Commission. You are welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency, the President of Zimbabwe, Your Excellencies, Presidents and Prime Ministers, distinguished ministers and delegates, representatives of the United Nations and development partners, esteemed colleagues, friends of Africa, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand on the existing protocols. It is both an honor and a privilege to address you today as we open the 11th session of the African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. On behalf of the African Union Commission Chairperson, His Excellency Mohamed Ali Yusuf, and my entire delegation, I bring warm greetings of solidarity and ambition, the kind of ambition that envisions an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous Africa driven by its own citizens and representing dynamic force in the global arena. We gather, ladies and gentlemen, at a pivotal moment when the geopolitical global landscape is marked by complex challenges, as well as issues of climate change, pollution, economic volatility, persistent inequalities. Yet, amongst these challenges, Africa possesses immense potential, untapped potential in its Africa's youthful population, abundant natural resources, and growing entrepreneurial spirit, which present us with unique opportunities to drive transformative change. We also make strides on integration through AFCTA, just to share that we remain prisoners of hope towards development agenda of Africa. Let me begin with three key messages, Your Excellencies. Messages that I hope will shape our dialogue and stir our collective will to act boldly as we take one step at a time, advancing towards the Africa we want as guided by the global strategy, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030, and our continental strategy, Agenda 2063. First, it's a message of gratitude. To the government and the people of Uganda, we say thank you very much. Thank you for your warm hospitality, your generosity, and above all, your steadfast commitment under the leadership and the vision of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni to Africa's unity and progress. Uganda has stood with us since the days of the Organization of African Unity and continues to play a vital role in our collective journey. And I say thank you very much, Uganda. I also extend heartfelt appreciation to my brother, Mr. Clever Gatete, who is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Your leadership breathes life into this forum, with every successful Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development becoming more visible, more real, and more actionable. Secondly, a message about Africa's development story. Our journey is not defined by a single trait, but by a rich tapestry of ambition, policy choices, and enduring commitments. The continental strategy, which is Agenda 2063, is Africa's blueprint for long-term transformation. Yet across our continent, we continue to see complementary visions that are also shaping progress. We have the Uganda's Vision 2040, the East African Community's Vision 2050, and countless district and community level plans. And of course, our shared global commitment, the UN SDG, which does not only guide our programming, but allow us to compare and mirror our progress against that of other continents. Allow me to demystify the common misconception that the plans are duplicating and competing agendas. They are actually converging commitments. Together, they weave Africa's development story. Our study evaluating the FTYIP showed 86% convergence between the SDGs and Agenda 2063, and a further discovery that the majority of national development plans are aligned to both agendas. The pain in the achievement of these strategies had been on our side, coordinating member states better and guiding measurements and reporting protocols. On the other side of member states, it is about action and implementation, delivering promises to our citizens as per our national development planning. What matters is not where we begin, but how we act. What actions are we taking? What trade-offs are we managing? How do we measure impact? This is the essence of this forum's theme: driving jobs, creation, and economic growth. Whether we speak of decent work, green jobs, or youth employment, it all comes down to one thing: delivering jobs. At every level, local, national, regional, continental, and global, we must ask, what are we doing? How are we making our commitments visible? And how are we making them count? The third message is about the future. In 2024, our heads of state and government endorsed the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063. The plan departed from low level of performance across all aspirations evident in the global strategic performance, such as SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. Despite Africa accounting to 16% of the global population, it bears 23% of the global disease burden, as per WHO 2024. Other health concerns include maternal mortality, which remains high, with 525 deaths per 1,000 live births. Other concerns include aspects of SDG 5, which is gender equality, with AU gender scorecard reflecting only 25% parliamentary seats that are held by women, despite the population quantum of 25% across the continent. Gaps on indicators still remain, particularly related to decent work and economic growth, as well as life below water. That plan defines 7 bold moonshots, ambitious, that reflect our collective will. One of them being that moonshoot 1, every member state should achieve at least monthly income level. It calls for radical sustainable development agenda, conscious of the hindrances but intentionally focusing Africa on its rich unexploited potential, including the demographic dividend, compelling us to create jobs that are due to our youthful population. This will be delivered through transformative pathways with a clear focus on identified key enablers and accelerators. But let us be clear, ladies and gentlemen, plans do not deliver themselves. It's people do. Over and above the greatest resource being the people, in 2023, our leaders pledged their commitment, accountability, resources, and desire to lead the implementation of Agenda 2063. This was building on the earlier commitment by the UN Secretary General as well as the AU chairperson in 2018 by signing the Joint Implementation Plan of Agenda 2063 and UN SDGs. The new AUC leadership pledge once again their total commitment to coordinate and guide member states on the joint implementation of the two agendas. Over the second week of assuming duty, we have already committed and we have already convened 49 member states to share the robust domestication plan, guiding them on the need to jointly implement the two agendas, one framework, and taking the agenda to its owners, who are the citizens of Africa. I wish also to report that on the 7th of April 2025, on the sidelines of this forum, UNECA, in collaboration with the AU Technical Working Group on Agenda 2063 and the UN Development Coordination Office, convened a UN resident coordinators to explore joint implementation of Agenda 2063's second 10-year implementation plan and UN Agenda 2030 for Africa transformation and sustainable development. The key takeaways were that national development plans must remain the cornerstone, not just for the 8 SDGs and Agenda 2063, but also for regional economic communities, national government, and local authorities. The shift, therefore, that we need from alignment is from alignment to commitment. We must move beyond simply aligning our work to articulate clear commitments, shaping investment choices, and holding ourselves accountable for results. We must strengthen our collective assets by clarifying the roles, the responsibilities, and accountabilities within the UN system, the African Union, the member states, and development partners. Only then can we unlock the full potential of our partnerships and work in true synergy. We must therefore seize the momentum around climate action as a powerful entry point to deliver across our development agendas, whether it's globally, continentally, regional, national, or local. Climate is not just an environmental issue. It is an economic, social, and developmental imperative. It offers a unifying platform to integrate SDGs, Agenda 2063, and national priorities in a coherent and impactful way. So I extend a call to action to all of you, legislators, policymakers, development practitioners, civil society leaders, youth champions, private sector, and citizens across Africa. Make your commitment visible. Wherever you sit, in a local council, national ministry, regional body, or global institution, your role matters. In conclusion, let our gathering in this Pan-African city of Kampala be a turning point where ambition meets accountability, where vision meets action. Let us think boldly, collaborate intentionally, and deliver consistently. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your inspiring remarks that are very informative but also challenging to all of us to take action as leaders of the continent. I now take the opportunity to invite His Excellency Clever Gatete, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, Your Excellency Clever Gatete, you have the floor.
Your Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, and First Lady and Minister of Education of the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency Emerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and the Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellencies, former heads of state and government, Your Excellency Robina Nabanja, Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency First Deputy Prime Minister of Equatorial Guinea, Your Excellency Moses Virakati, African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Development, Honorable Finance Minister, Mauritania, and the Chair of Outgoing Bureau of the Africa Regional Forum for Sustainable Development, Honorable Ministers, my good friend, Your Excellency Bob Ray, the PR Permanent Representative of Canada and the President of ECOSOC, distinguished delegates, representatives of partner regional and international organizations, members of civil society and private sector, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a privilege to address this 11th session of the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development, convened under the compelling theme, Driving Job Creation and Economic Growth through Sustainable, Inclusive, Science, and Evidence-Based Solutions for the 2030 Agenda and the African Union Agenda 2063. I wish to begin by extending my heartfelt gratitude to the government and people of Uganda for their gracious hospitality in hosting us and for their dedication to Africa's sustainable development journey. We know that Uganda is leading by example on sustainable development goals implementation. In particular, I wish to convey my deep appreciation to His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for his support to the Economic Commission for Africa's mandate and his commitment to the broader development priorities of Africa. My profound gratitude also goes to Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, and all distinguished participants for your leadership in advancing Africa's transformation agenda. I also wish to acknowledge the steadfast collaboration of our partners, especially the African Union Commission, the Africa Development Bank, and the United Nations system, whose collective efforts have brought us here today. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as we speak, structural vulnerabilities, including the lingering effects of COVID-19, climate shocks, conflicts, and geopolitical tensions, as well as mounting debt burdens, continue to stifle Africa's progress. For instance, the continent is grappling with a substantial debt burden amounting to 64.3% of GDP, which significantly limits fiscal space for critical investments in education, health, infrastructure, and other essential sectors. Furthermore, our average GDP growth since 2019 has hovered around 3%, which is far below the 7% needed to achieve the SDG 8 on work and economic growth. In light of the current global developments, it's now clear that development aid can no longer be considered a reliable or sustainable solution, and the traditional financing models are increasingly misaligned with Africa's development aspirations. At this critical moment for Africa, we have no choice but to look inward and take bold, transformative actions anchored in evidence, innovation, and inclusivity, including investing in the capacity of our people and institutions to turn things around. With just 5 years to 2030, the data is sobering. Out of 144 measurable SDG targets, only 10 are on track, while 106 are progressing too slowly, with 28 regressing. In fact, at the current rate, SDG 5 on gender equality will take decades to be achieved, and this risks undermining women's contribution to social and economic progress. We simply cannot afford to continue at this pace. To reverse this trend, we must move beyond diagnosing our challenges to implementing bold and actionable solutions. And this forum offers us an opportunity to turn our attention to 5 critical SDGs, which provide us with a path to accelerated progress in alignment with the successful delivery of the second 10-year implementation plan of the African Union Agenda 2063. First is SDG 3, good health and well-being. Today, millions of Africans still lack access to quality health care. 4 out of 5 African countries spend less than $86 per capita on health, which is well below the World Health Organization's recommended threshold minimum of $249. In 2022, health expenditure averaged just 7% of budgets, far from the 15% pledged in 2001. We must close these gaps, and to do so, we need to boost domestic financing, strengthen health systems, and leverage digital health solutions. Second is SDG 5, which is gender equality. How can Africa truly prosper when half of its population remains economically marginalized? Yet in this day and age, women still face barriers in education, finance, and employment. These barriers must be dismantled. It is not right that women hold only 26% of parliamentary seats, although it has increased from 19% in 2015. Also, a 12% gender gap persists in mobile money access, despite $1.3 trillion in transactions in 2022, highlighting systemic inequalities that must be addressed. We must enact policies that promote economic empowerment, including gender-responsive budgeting, digital inclusion, and leadership opportunities for women across all sectors. Third, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. Given that 83% of Africa's workforce operates in the informal sector, with more than 113 million people either unemployed or underemployed, and nearly a third living in extreme working poverty, the imperative to prioritize sustainable livelihoods has never been greater. Accordingly, it is essential that we scale up vocational training, promote entrepreneurship, formalize jobs, and invest in social protections to harness our almost 1 billion strong working age population by 2030. Fourth is SDG 14, life below water. Africa's blue economy holds untapped economic potential. However, marine degradation, weak governance, and underinvestment threaten its sustainability. We have a huge opportunity in the blue economy, which could grow from $296 billion in 2018 to $576 billion by 2063, but currently receives only 3.5% of the SDG financing. Illegal fishing also costs us $10 billion annually, and Africa's Ocean Health Index lags at just 52.7 against a global average of 71.4. To this end, sustainable investments in aquaculture, coastal tourism, and blue carbon projects modeled on Seychelles and Gabon's date for nature swaps are vital to release this potential. And finally, the SDG 17 partnerships for the goals is to be clear, no country can achieve these goals in isolation, but their realization requires strengthened cooperation at national, regional, and global levels. In this context, as we continue to advocate for the reform of the global financial architecture, we must also commit to working together on all aspects of SDGs. This includes fostering strong trade partnerships and advancing North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation, among others, as critical pillars of our collective progress. Excellencies, how then do we mobilize the resources to achieve the SDGs and African Union Agenda 2063? I propose 4 strategic pillars of action for your consideration. First, we must scale up domestic resource mobilization. This includes expanding tax bases, strategically utilizing pension funds and sovereign wealth funds, strengthening revenue collection, and digitizing the economy to curb the illicit financial flows. For example, if we restrain illicit financial flows, estimated at $89 billion annually, alongside harnessing sovereign wealth funds, we can secure billions for our developmental needs. Furthermore, remittance-backed bonds could increase the $53 billion FDI that flowed to Africa in 2023. Second, it is time to de-risk our economies and elevate capital market development, which will roll out the red carpet for private sector investment. With blended finance, credit guarantees, and flourishing markets, we will direct a surge of capital to sectors like agriculture and renewable energy. This could significantly increase the 2% global clean energy investment in Africa. Domestic capital market development would also increase long-term resources for private sector investment in our continent. Third, we need to expand access to affordable finance for our population, especially women and youth who are financially excluded. It is unacceptable, for example, that women today face a 12% gap in financial inclusion. Addressing this requires that we scale microfinance, digital finance, and impact investing to empower women-led small enterprises and youth entrepreneurs. Inclusive growth is not a choice. It is the only viable path to realizing Africa's full potential. Finally, it is imperative that we leverage the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to advance Africa's agenda. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area presents a unique opportunity to increase intra-Africa trade by 45% by 2045 and significantly drive Africa's industrialization, job creation, and sustainable growth agenda. We must accelerate regional value chains in green industries, agriculture, manufacturing, and services, and employ millions of our people. Excellencies, there is more that we can do in this digital age. Investing in digital connectivity, artificial intelligence, blockchain solutions, and evidence-based policy making will drive efficiencies in trade, governance, and service delivery. Also, an African Union protocol on digital trade would transform e-commerce, expand market access, and drive large-scale job creation across the continent. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as I conclude, the clock is ticking. The next 5 years must be marked by bold leadership, decisive policies, and strengthened partnerships that will place Africa on a trajectory of sustainable prosperity. With you, our heads of states and government, driving policy reforms, creating an enabling business environment, and mobilizing domestic resources for sustainable development, we are more than capable of delivering. And the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the UN system remain committed to join hands with you, business leaders, civil society, regional institutions, and development partners to work and achieve the promise of the SDGs and Africa Agenda 2063. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, for your very informative and inspiring remarks. Sir, thank you very much. I now take the pleasure to invite you to receive a message from Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. She is not physically present here, but she will speak to us through a video link. May I request the technical team to enable her to speak to us.
and gentlemen, it is a great honor to join you for the 11th session of Africa Regional Forum Sustainable Development. I thank the government and the people of Uganda for their generous hospitality, and I extend my sincere appreciation to President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Prime Minister Rubina Nabanja, and His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, all for their leadership and commitment to sustainable development. And to my brother Executive Secretary Claver Gatete for convening us at this forum. Excellencies, Africa stands at a pivotal moment, not only of challenge but of immense opportunity. With just 5 years remaining to achieve the 2030 Agenda and the second decade of Agenda 2063 now underway, we must confront the hard truths and match them with bold and courageous solutions. Yes, progress has not been fast enough. Structural inequalities persist. Informal employment remains widespread, disproportionately affecting women, our young people and rural communities. The annual financing gap to achieve the SDGs stands at a staggering $200 billion. Foreign direct investment to Africa declined in 2024 by 1.9%, falling to $53 billion. And the burden of debt is suffocating. In 2023, 25 African countries spent more on external debt servicing than on health and education combined. This is unacceptable. Over 60% of countries are now in or at a higher risk of debt distress. In too many countries, more than half of government revenue goes to debt repayments, undermining vital investments in people, resilience, jobs, and growth. The Abuja Declaration remains a distant ambition. Half of African countries spend less than 6% of national budgets on health, and the high cost of digital access, especially in rural areas, continues to exclude millions of our people, deepening gender and geographic divides. But these figures do not define us. Africa is not standing still. We are standing up. Despite global headwinds, our continent accounted for 9 of the world's fastest growing economies in 2024. Progress is against HIV and AIDS is encouraging, with nearly 24 countries recording significant declines in new infections. Women across the continent are leading change. Today, 26% of parliamentary seats in Africa are held by women, up from 19% in 2015. But this does mask some of the inequalities in different countries. And the landmark AU Convention on Eliminating Violence Against Women and Girls represents the first legally binding commitment of its kind on the continent. A powerful step forward. Now we must turn words into action. Across these efforts, Africa's leadership and innovation continue to inspire. From local solutions to global negotiations, African countries are driving forward a bold vision for inclusive, sustainable development. Excellencies, the United Nations is proud to stand with you. Our resident coordinators, our UN country teams, and regional expertise are fully mobilized to support your priorities. The stronger connection between regional economic commissions and resident coordinators, anchored by the Secretary General's reforms, has created new opportunities to align policy and operations and deliver integrated support across Africa's priorities. This gives me great confidence that together we can accelerate action on the SDGs and Agenda 2063. This year brings major global milestones: the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, the 2nd World Social Summit, the food system stock-taking moment in Ethiopia, and COP30 in Brazil. Africa's voice must shape every one of these global milestones. We must prioritize debt sustainability with bolder debt relief measures, expanded concessional funding, and innovative mechanisms such as debt for climate and debt for development swaps. And we must embrace bold transitions in energy, food systems, digital transformation, education, and social protection. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a cornerstone of this transformation. By reducing trade barriers, enhancing regional integration, and expanding market access, AFSCFTA has the power to unlock new opportunities for inclusive growth, industrialization, and value addition across the continent. Let us seize this forum and the Kampala Declaration as a catalyst for regional leadership and global solidarity. Let us scale what works, deepen our partnerships, and create the enabling conditions for investment and innovation. Let us tell a new story of African solutions, driven by African leadership, especially our young people, powered by African people, and anchored in African values. Let us turn ambition into action, in solidarity with the African Union, in service of the Africa that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Amina Mohammed, for your statement. Your Excellency, our chief guest, the theme for this meeting, once again, is driving job creation and economic growth through sustainable, inclusive, science and evidence-based solutions for the 2030 Agenda and the Agenda 2063. And before you, we have distinguished delegates from across the continent. The people gathered here include heads of delegations from the 54 countries of Africa, and most of the heads are government ministers, but also specifically we have ministers responsible for SDGs and also ministers responsible for science, technology, and innovation in our various countries in Africa. We also have a delegation from the African Union. We have a delegation from the United Nations, as well as the regional directors of UN in Africa. We have representation from the private sector in Africa. We have civil society organizations from Africa. So we have the African leaders gathered here in Munyonyo, Kampala, and once again, we want to welcome you. And welcome to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. And I do hope that you will adjust your itineraries to explore Uganda beyond Kampala so that you appreciate what is meant by Uganda being the Pearl of Africa. Amidst us, Your Excellencies, we have the Right Honorable Rukia Nakadama, our third Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda. I want to recognize you, Prime Minister. We also have our former Prime Ministers of the Republic of Uganda. We have the Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi, present here with us. We have the Right Honorable Ndugu Ruhakana Rugunda, also former Prime Minister of Uganda. We have the Honorable Sam Kutesa, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and the former President of the UN General Assembly. We also have government ministers. In the government of Uganda, you could stand up or wave for recognition. They are here to be part of these important discussions. And once again, we welcome all of you to the city of Kampala, Uganda. I now take the opportunity to invite Right Honorable Robina Nabanja, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda. Here we have a local name for her. She's called Majegere. Majegere is that road equipment machine, the road equipment machine which clears the ground. So Right Honorable Prime Minister, you are welcome. You have the floor. And after your remarks, you will invite our chief guest, the President of the Republic of Uganda.
Your Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and Mama, the First Lady, and the Minister of Education, Your Excellency the President of Zimbabwe, Your Excellencies the former heads of states and government, the first Deputy Prime Minister of Equatorial Guinea, the third Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, honorable ministers, the President of the United Nations Economic Social Council, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, leaders of regional and international organizations, religious leaders, the honorable members of parliament, the members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of development partners, the private sector and civil society organizations, the academia and research institutions, our youth and women leaders, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a privilege for me to stand before you to welcome you to Uganda for the 11th Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. Your Excellencies, Uganda is truly a privilege to host this esteemed gathering of leaders and experts from across Africa and beyond, united by a common purpose to accelerate progress towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Africa's Agenda 2063. Your Excellencies, this forum has a special place in Uganda and indeed African journey. Just a year ago, in April, I had the honor of being invited by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa to deliver a keynote address at the 10th African Regional Forum in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It was during that engagement that Uganda was elected the third vice chair of the Bureau, a testament to our nation's commitment to sustainable development and regional cooperation. Inspired by the vision of this forum, I consulted you, Mr. President, and with your guidance and support, Uganda applied and was honored to be selected as this year's host. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to sincerely thank the Executive Secretary of ECA and the entire Bureau for entrusting Uganda with this responsibility. Your Excellencies, over the past 3 days, the African Regional Forum on SDGs has been enriched by a series of impactful pre-events that have brought critical voices and bold ideas to the forefront. From COP27 preparatory dialogues, the message was clear. Africa must speak with one voice in demanding for climate justice and scaled up adaptation financing. Your Excellencies, we have had sessions on science, technology and innovation, digital transformation in delivering the SDGs. The Ministers of Finance and the private sector leaders emphasized the urgency for innovative and blended financing models to bridge the SDG financing gaps. Faith-based organizations highlighted the moral responsibility to care for people and the planet, while parliamentarians committed to enhancing and enacting stronger legislative frameworks to respond to the climate crises. Our children and the youth who are here present made a passionate call for inclusion and intergenerational justice, reminding us that the future must be shaped with their voices at the table. The African Former Leaders Forum, graced by Your Excellency with a keynote address, emphasized leadership, Pan-Africanism, peace, and economic transformation as essential enablers to achieving Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063. These diverse and powerful messages have laid a solid foundation for this forum. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, recognition of participants. Allow me, before you, to inform you, Your Excellency, to recognize and appreciate the distinguished individuals and groups who have honored with us their presence. Our esteemed heads of states and government, whose leadership is shaping Africa's transformation. Of course, most of them are near you. I know we have the President of Zimbabwe and the other heads of governments who are here. Your Excellency, we have the Executive Secretary of ECA for the Commission's instrumental role in advancing SDG and Agenda 2063. The Honorable Ministers and government representatives whose policies and actions drive national and regional development. Your Excellency, we have the former Prime Ministers of Uganda whose leadership has laid the foundation for Uganda's progress. Your Excellency, allow me to recognize Honorable Sam Kutesa, who served as President of the United Nations General Assembly between the year 2015 and 2016, a period that saw the historic adoption of the SDGs. The Honorable Members of Parliament, whose legislative role is crucial in advancing the Sustainable Development Agenda, and most of them are here. I would request that they stand up for recognition. Your Excellency, representatives from regional and international organizations who play a vital role in policy formulation and implementation. Our diplomatic corps and development partners for their continued support and cooperation in Africa's development journey. I recognize the private sector and civil society whose innovation and advocacy are key in sustainable and inclusive growth. We have the academia and research institutions who provide evidence-based solutions to policy making. We have the youth and women leaders whose voices and contributions are essential for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and ensuring that no one is left behind. Your Excellency, allow me to acknowledge the organizing committees for the successful hosting of this forum because of their collective effort. Allow me to recognize the political committee, which I had the honor to chair, for the strategic guidance. The political committee or the ministerial committee. I can see Honorable Kasule Lumumba and many others. Your Excellency, the ministerial committee was also chaired by the Right Honorable Kasule Lumumba for the policy leadership. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, we had the National Organizing Committee, which was chaired by the Permanent Secretary, Alex Kakoza, Office of the Prime Minister. We have the SDG Secretariat in my office, led by Dr. Albert Byamgisha. I thank you for your tireless efforts. Your Excellency, allow me to recognize you for your visionary leadership as a front runner in the implementation of sustainable development goals in Uganda. I also want to thank you for supporting this event with funding. Your Excellency and honorable members, under the guidance of His Excellency the President, Uganda has taken significant strides in advancing inclusive growth, social transformation, and economic resilience, ensuring that SDGs remain central in our national development agenda. Your steadfast commitment continues to inspire not only Uganda, but the entire African continent. As I conclude, Your Excellency and distinguished guests, this gathering is a testament to Africa's shared determination to accelerate progress on sustainable development. We are here, Your Excellencies, to reaffirm our collective commitment to principles of inclusivity, equity, and resilience. It is now my honor to invite you, Your Excellency, to deliver the keynote address that will inspire and guide our collective action. I thank you so much for God and my country.
Hello, His Excellency President Mnangagwa, President of Zimbabwe, the former heads of state, President Chikwete, Prime Minister Mariam, the heads of delegations, members of the diplomatic corps, all the attendants of this conference. I welcome you to Uganda, and I thank you for having selected Uganda for this meeting. You are most welcome. This is a topic which is very good to discuss when we are all gathered here. And in the case of Uganda, because we are talking about socio-economic transformation and job creation, although sometimes the matter is not thoroughly dealt with, because sometimes they talk about sustainable development. And I'm a bit suspicious of that description, as I will tell you later. The story of Uganda in the matter of economic transformation, because that is the topic, transformation. In recent times, starts with 1900 AD. In Uganda, here we say, Lukumi Rwanda, 1900. When the British declared Uganda a protectorate after the defeat of our inefficient kings. Our kings were hopeless. They didn't organize us to defeat the British. We could have defeated them. At that time, Uganda was a pre-capitalist traditional economy and society based on subsistence agriculture of crops and livestock, artisanship, what we call emyoga in our language, fisheries, and some services such as healing, treating people, called okuragura in our language. So you, the experts, you need to be very specific in describing these phenomena. I don't know, but I suspect the economies of the other African countries at that time, 1900, were maybe about the same. Certainly the ones of East Africa, which we know, because those ones we know, Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda, South, those ones we know. They were like us. Pre-capitalist, based on crops, livestock, some artisan skills, and in some cases, fishing. The mode of exchange that time was okchurka. Okchurka in our language means barter trade. They were doing business by barter trade. And it is called okchurka in our language. With a little use, they had started using money. A little use of cowrie shells and CMB as money. Cowrie shells. They were beginning to use money at that time, but money using the cowrie shells. And it's called Nsimbi in our language, which is the same word we use for money even today. That is 1900. By 1962, the British were here only for 68 years. By 1962, when the British left, the British had created a small enclave economy. In the 1960s, in the universities, we were using those words, but I no longer hear them. The words we were using in the 1960s were enclave economies. That was the economy of Uganda at that time at independence, just like they had done in other colonies. Even the other colonies, it was more or less the same. An enclave economy meant a small island of modernity surrounded by a sea of underdevelopment. That's why we're calling them enclave economies. A small island of modernity surrounded by a sea of underdevelopment. That is why they were called enclave island economies. In the case of Uganda, the small island of modernity and money economy was comprised of the 3 C's and 3 T's. That's how they were describing the economy of Uganda by 1963. An economy of the 3 C's and the 3 T's. The three C's were cotton, coffee, and copper. These were the three C's. The three T's were tobacco, tea, and tourism. So that was the small economy of Uganda at independence, 1962. Just on 6 activities: copper, coffee, cotton, tea, tobacco, and tourism. The agricultural products and the minerals, copper, were being exported as raw materials. In Francais, I hear matière première. That's what I hear them saying. Matière première. So these products were being exported as raw materials. This meant that on the average, getting about 10% of the value of the product. Because when you export a raw material, you get only about 10% of the value of that product. If you take coffee, when you export a kilogram of coffee, you will get about $2.5 of unprocessed coffee. Somebody who is cleverer than you takes the coffee, roasts it, grinds it, packs it, and he gets $40 when you got 2.5. You, the African, you got 2.5 for your coffee. Somebody who is cleverer than you got $40, and all the jobs, because remember, all those are jobs. You are talking of jobs, jobs. These are the jobs. The job of roasting the coffee is exported. The one who roasts the coffee is not your daughter. The job of grinding, the job of packaging, all these are exported. There used to be a Paris club called for donors. I don't know why they were not calling Africans. Because Africans have been the major donors for the others. They have been donating money, because in a kilo of coffee, you donate almost $30. You donate to the outsiders. And you also donate jobs. So you are the big donors here, you people. When you export a raw material and somebody goes and makes more money out of it and creates jobs for his children, when yours here have no jobs, you are the donor. You are donating money. You are donating jobs. That's what Africans have been doing. 10% of the value of the product and exporting all the jobs value addition brings. Apart from the mistake of having no or little value addition, the enclave economy covered only 4% of the homesteads of Uganda by 1962. So that economy of the 3 C's and the 3 T's, 1962, was covering only 4% of the homesteads. 96% of the homesteads were outside the money economy. They were working only for the stomach. Okorra echida chonka, we say in our language. Working only for the stomach. However, in 1971, Idi Amin took over the country. And by 1986, when the NRM came to power, the enclave economy had been destroyed. So Idi Amin comes in and destroys the small island. The small island of Mane is now destroyed by Idi Amin. Because Idi Amin was a colonial sergeant, didn't know anything. Although he was calling himself a field marshal, came and destroyed everything. Only coffee and tobacco were still limping on by the time we came. All the others had collapsed. Tourism had collapsed. Cotton had collapsed. All the others had collapsed except coffee and tobacco, which was still limping on. Therefore, the NRM has had to start with a ruined little enclave economy and the sea of the underdeveloped homesteads and population. Since that time, we have achieved the following. Number one, we have been able to have the minimum economic recovery by bringing back some of the 3 C's and the 3 T's. So we are now to try and bring back some of the 3 C's and the 3 T's. Go back to 1971, in other words. Number 2, expanding the 3 C's and the 3 T's where possible. For instance, if you take coffee, exports in that time were 3 million bags. In 1986, they are now 9 million bags. We are now exporting 9 million bags of coffee. And the same for the other products. Tea, more, we are producing more of those. Number 3, diversifying the economy by commercializing other products, such as milk. You can imagine in the colonial times, we are drinking imported milk. I'm a milkman myself. In the village, I have cows all the time. But my cows, we are not selling milk to the towns. In the towns, people were drinking milk from New Zealand, from Australia, from Switzerland, and later on from Kenya a little bit. So, and we are being told that milk is not a cash product. It is just a food. You just eat it at home. For cash product, it is only coffee. What the colonial people wanted is what they told us, that coffee was a cash crop, but milk was a food to be eaten by the villagers. So what we have done, we have commercialized all these products: milk, beef, leather, maize, fruits, fish, etc., etc. All those are now cash crops, cash products. So that is number 3. Number 4, adding value to the raw materials. This is our big war now, adding value to the raw materials. Because if you don't do that, that's actually the biggest problem we see in Africa. If you take, we have got very good iron ore here. It's the best in the world, 70% pure. But some time ago, an Indian company came and said they wanted to export iron ore to India. as iron ore. I said, and what would that mean? They would pay us $47 per ton of iron ore. Now, when you process iron ore into steel, that time the price was $900. So here, you Ugandans, you would get $47 from your iron ore called obtare in our language. That's what we call it, obtare. And somebody will get $900 from from what you get $47, which is yours. Somebody will get $900. And all the jobs, because remember, all those jobs of the machines, of the what, will be abroad. So I said, no way. And you must have heard that I banned the export of unprocessed minerals. No unprocessed mineral leaves Uganda now. I told our people here that if you can't process the minerals, let them stay in the ground. The grandchildren will come and process them. You go to heaven and solve your problems. But don't take away our people's minerals. If you can't process them, leave them there. A company came from, I think it was Canada, and they said, you people, you have got uranium. I said, yes, I know it. I said, I want to mine it and take it. Take it where? In order to do what? Oh, I will go and generate electricity. But why do you want to generate electricity in Canada when I have no electricity here? Why don't you process it here? I have heard a rumor that there are human beings here. So I said goodbye to the group. The uranium is still in the ground. Let it stay there. So this business of raw materials is very, very dangerous. Now, finally, we have now started entering the knowledge economy. Not only adding value to the raw materials, but transforming them into finished products. Like now we are making buses, they can show them to you here if they have them. Because some of these people here are highly educated, the engineers. So we have challenged them and they are coming up. Those buses are built from the scratch here. That bus is called Chira. Chira is our name for the Nile. The Nile River, we call it, in our language here, we call it Chira. So a Chira vehicle is that one there. They can also show you the agriculture. Show us the bananas. Now, when there was a war in Ukraine, people were saying that there was going to be no food in Uganda. I said, you must be sick. How can Uganda get food from Ukraine? We have a lot of food here. Our problem is the market, where to sell the food. So the bananas, the coffee, do you have the coffee on your screen? Those are coffee factories. The cows, show the cows. Do you have cows? You don't have cows, you people? So we are struggling. The story of coffee is really scandalous. The global value of coffee is $460 billion. But all the coffee producing countries, out of the $460 billion, they share 25 billion. They take away 25 billion. Value 460 billion. The coffee growing countries, all of them, African ones, Vietnam, Brazil, they take only 25 billion. And Africa, 2.5 billion only. Germany earns more from coffee than all the coffee growing countries. Germany earns $65 billion from coffee. Yet they don't produce a single kilo of coffee. Show us the cows, please. You don't have the cows?
It's coming yellow.
And the factories of the milk factories, not just the cow. Those are the indigenous Nile Valley cows. But those are the factories of the milk. So we are now in what I would call phase 5, where we are entering the knowledge economy. Automobiles, vaccines, computers, making all those instead of importing them. In diversifying the economy, we had struggled with the big portion of the population that was outside the money economy, and we are only producing for home consumption. By 2013, these were still 68% of the homesteads. By 2013, 68% of the homesteads were still outside the money economy. Apart from earlier programs, we had to bring in the army. Because the problem with you see, Uganda, the climate is so good, life is easy, you don't have to work. You can just be idle and you eat from your relatives. So it's a struggle to make them wake up. So we had to bring in the army and Operation Wealth Creation to distribute free seedlings of coffee or fruits to the homesteads, as well as breeding stock. Later on, we phased out the army and started the formation of the circles of wealth creators per parish. We guide that these wealth creators select enterprises with echibaro. Echibaro is our word for calculating the benefit. Echibaro is, in Swahili they will say esabu. They should select enterprises that are in tandem with the size of the land of the wealth creator. The ones with big land are flexible and either do extensive agriculture, doing a low value enterprise but do it on a big scale, or use intensive agriculture, doing high value enterprise on small pieces of land. Activities that fall in the latter category are the ones of high value are coffee, fruits, dairy farming, piggery, poultry, fish farming, and growing food crops. Recently, our people have added cocoa and palm oil. Palm oil, show us that palm oil if you have it. You can imagine that all the soap we were washing with was from palm oil from Malaysia and Indonesia. So if there is a problem in Malaysia or Indonesia, we would end up not washing. So we started growing the palm oil. They can show it to you when they get it. Using intensive agriculture, a 1 acre model can create jobs for 15 people. You are talking about jobs. Agriculture alone, here in Uganda, we have found that if you commercialize it, you will create a lot of jobs in agriculture. 1 acre, well planned for intensive agriculture for dairy or poultry, creates 15 jobs. Uganda has got 40 million acres suitable for agriculture. If we use only 7 million of these acres, and each one creates 15 jobs, 105 million jobs will be created. 105 million jobs will be created in agriculture alone. This is more jobs for the whole population of Uganda than the whole population of Uganda. Population of Uganda is now 46 million. But you can create 105 million jobs by using just 1/4 of the arable land of Uganda. This is just for agriculture, commercial agriculture. Commercial agriculture as opposed to subsistence agriculture, or kukola ekida kyonka. However, the wealth and jobs are not only to be got in agriculture. There are 3 other sectors which are industry and artisanship, manufacturing, factories like the ones you saw. That is palm oil. That is palm oil. Palm oil needs a lot of rain. But palm oil was exported from Nigeria and taken to Indonesia and Malaysia. And they now became the big producers of palm oil. Even we were importing the palm oil from Malaysia and Indonesia until recently when we started doing the palm oil ourselves. So there are sectors other than agriculture, manufacturing and artisanship, services, hotels, tourism, what have you, and ICT. We treat ICT as a separate sector. As of now, agriculture is employing 3.6 million people. Industry is employing 1.4 million people. Services are employing 5 million people. And ICT is employing 46,000 people. We are just beginning, but you can see the jobs can be created. The hotels, tourism, transport. Transport is employing a lot of people. In order for the four sectors to be fully developed so as to create wealth and jobs, they need low-cost transport, the railway and the lake transport. Part of the mistakes in Africa have been to neglect the railways. And this is what I told the World Bank when we met in Nairobi. How can you talk of private sector-led growth if you don't talk about lowering the costs of doing business? Now, some of the factors that bring costs to go up is transport of cargo. If you have got expensive cargo transport, how would the companies succeed? So, rail transport, lake transport, electricity, an educated and healthy workforce, stopping the export of raw materials, low cost of money for borrowing to do business, a big market of Africa and beyond. Now, those are the obstacles that you should really concentrate on. Here, I have not gone into it here because this is a short speech. But fortunately, I had made this statement in Nairobi when we had the TICAD, a meeting with the Japanese there, the Prime Minister of Japan. All this time we have been around as a student movement in the 1960s, as a fighting force, and now having been in government, and also working with our brothers from Africa. Mwalimu Nyerere, we interacted with him a lot. Shaviarira from Zimbabwe. We have been able to, we think we have identified the bottlenecks, strategic bottlenecks. Now in this booklet, which they will give you, we have identified 10 bottlenecks. Bottleneck number one, ideological disorientation. The belief in the politics of identity. This is the big curse in Africa. People who believe in the politics of identity. Tribe, religion. For us, we say this is wrong. You should look at the politics of interests. It is all mentioned here. Because of that, you find many countries cannot build state institutions. They cannot build pillars of state. How would you build an army if you believe in tribalism? Will you have an army for every tribe? If you don't believe in Uganda, how would you have a Uganda army? Now, if you don't have an army, what happens? You can't maintain peace. That's why people have got to go to the United Nations to come and defend them. Can you imagine? UN troops in Africa, what are they doing? Defending you. Why can't you defend yourself? Because of the wrong, the underdevelopment of the human resource, lack of industrialization, and the export of the raw materials, which we have talked about here. Now, but also these Ugandans can tell you that when you wake up a bit and start doing some work, you will soon find that the internal market of Uganda is not enough. Like the milk I'm talking about. We are producing 5.3 billion liters of milk, but the internal market is only 800 million liters. If we didn't have the East African community, the dairy sector in Uganda would have collapsed. Sugar, show us the sugar if you have the sugar there on your pictures. Sugar. What saves us is the East African market. So, you people, you must emphasize regional integration for the market, so that we have got, our business people have got guaranteed markets. And so on, they are 10, they are all here in this booklet. Now, finally, by removing the bottlenecks, you will create capacity for socio-economic transformation, not mere quantitative growth, sustainable growth. Because when you say sustainable development, can a child remain a child sustainably? That is a child sustainably. A child at puberty must transform into a teenager. A teenager must transform into an adult. This is the law of nature. Quantitative growth leading to qualitative change. But if you are a raw material exporting country, how will you transform? So I'm very glad that you are beginning to use in our vocabulary the words transformation. We must go from pre-industrial to industrial societies. I talked a little bit. I talked about it the other day with the leaders. How can you have a peasant producing another peasant? Until when? The peasant must disappear and we have the middle class. In Francais, we say bourgeoisie. The peasant, peasant must go, and we have bourgeoisie and proletariat, the working class, skilled working class. Europe has transformed. If you go to Europe in 1400, they had three classes. They had the peasants, the artisans, and the feudalists. By the time of the French Revolution, Francais, 1789, there were now four social classes. The feudalists, there was now a new class which never existed in human history, the middle class. Classe moyenne, you say? Is that how you say? Classe moyenne. Bourgeoisie. These were a new social class. And then the proletariat, the working class, and then the peasants. But if you go to Europe today, there are no more feudalists, there are no more peasants. It is now class moyenne and the skilled working class. Society has changed. But here, we are engaged in conservation of underdevelopment. A peasant producing another peasant. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda. Can we put our hands together and once again appreciate the President for that educative presentation that has given us how Uganda has moved, but definitely the story can be extrapolated to look at other countries in Africa. So thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that insightful presentation. And indeed, like he presented, Uganda's story after independence is more or less like what happened to the other countries in Africa. Our countries were characterized by a number of issues: neo-colonial interference, bad governance, conflicts and social disruption, lack of progress, among other challenges. Probably what he didn't emphasize, that President Yoweri Museveni, as a young person, as a student, was not happy with what he was seeing in terms of how the country and the continent was moving. And he put up a challenge and started a resistance movement and challenged the status quo and rewrote the history of this country by starting a new chapter. And I want to thank you, Your Excellency, that by the time you inherited this country, Uganda was like a patient that was surviving on oxygen and steroids. And like you heard from his presentation, Uganda is on a forward march. And when we look at the quality of life indicators, they continue to improve tremendously in the last 30, 40 years. And we give credit to our President, who has led us very well.
Excusez-moi. Just one comment. Really, the solutions are with us. I had forgotten to mention this. We had some argument with the Europeans recently. We passed a law which was discouraging homosexuality here. Then Mr. Biden removed us from the AGOA list. He chased us. That was one. Number two, the World Bank stopped giving us loans. But our economy grew by 6%. We are not bothered with all that. What is crucial for me, of all this, apart from our own mistakes, the next most important thing is regional integration. If we avoid internal mistakes and we are clear about the regional integration, the regional market, there is nothing, all that things that happen outside will not concern us. I thought I should mention that one also. The economy of Uganda has been growing very fast with or without external support. But with the external support, now they have come back. They say we are good people. So we say you are most welcome. Thank you very much. Sorry to
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that additional information. And we appreciate you, sir, for your leadership. As I was saying, that under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni, the quality of life indicators in Uganda have tremendously improved. If I can just give one example, that in the late 80s, early 90s, because of HIV and AIDS and other challenges, our life expectancy at birth had dropped to 43 years. But our recent studies, including the census, have shown that over the time, this has now increased to 72 years. And for those of you who are scholars, this is phenomenal. From 43 years, and a period of about 30, 40 years, it has increased to 72 years. Can we appreciate that? Your Excellency, we thank you. We thank you very much for your educative presentation. As we come to the conclusion of the opening ceremony, let me once again recognize the members of Parliament from different countries in Africa who are here. There are those who belong to the Parliamentary Forum on Climate Change, and they have been here having discussions. Your Excellency, we also have our religious leaders. The various interreligious councils in Africa are here, including our own from Uganda. Maybe you could wave our presidents. Yeah, they are seated on the extreme left of my side. You are welcome, and thank you for participating in this conference. Allow me, Your Excellency, and the distinguished delegates to also recognize Her Excellency, the First Lady of Uganda, who is also the Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni. We want to thank you and appreciate you for having come to be with us this morning. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the opening ceremony, and we shall have to leave the room in reverse order. We shall allow our Excellency the Presidents and members on the podium to exit first, and then the rest of us will follow as we go for the coffee break. We are going to have a group photograph at the steps outside this conference hall, and the photo will have our Excellencies on the podium, the former heads of state and government, our Right Honorable Prime Minister, and all the Honorable Ministers present here, the heads of delegations of the various countries and organizations present, our religious leaders, and the honorable members of Parliament. So we shall gather at the steps outside, and we take a group photograph with our presidents who are here with us. We shall break off for coffee, and according to the program, we had allocated 30 minutes, but in the interest of catching up with time, once our presidents have taken the coffee, if they do that in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we shall get back. Why? Because the chair of the next session is none other than the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. We shall have a presidential dialogue having our distinguished Excellencies under the chairmanship of our President of Uganda in that dialogue. So let's break off for coffee, but once our presidents are ready, it is before 30 minutes, we shall come, assemble, and then we go into that interesting part of the conversation today, the presidential dialogue, where we are going to interrogate all these issues regarding the socio-economic transformation of Africa. So with that, I invite our Excellency, the Presidents and members on the podium to lead us as we get out to take the photograph. Thank you very much, and may God bless all of you.
Je viens du Mali. Le drapeau est sorti.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for keeping it UBC TV. Well, we are coming to you live from Monyonyo Convention Center, and we are telling you what has been transpiring at this very particular place. A lot of things have been talked about by the dignitaries, but of course our President, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has talked about a number of issues, of course, to the dignitaries who are attending this 11th session of the African Forum to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals and other SDGs to see how best they can be re-echoed when it comes to Africa. A number of things have been talked about, but of course the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has talked about how the economy of Uganda has really transformed from the 1900 AD, of course, when Uganda was declared a British protectorate, and he talked about a number of things that have really come on board, talking about the 3 C's and the 2 T's. That is tea, that is tourism, that is coffee, that is cotton. He says some of the things that can really be done about the 3 C's and the 2 C's, the 2 T's. If something is done in our Uganda, talking about development, a lot can really be achieved. He also talked about diversifying the economy. He talked about how we used to import our milk, that is in the 1960s. But of course, apparently a number of things have been commercialized, that is ghee. All the products that can easily be made out of the milk products, he says they have been commercialized, and a lot of money has really been come into the economy. He has talked about adding value to the raw materials, but of course saying this is one of the challenges that is really affecting Uganda, but not only Uganda, because this session is really focusing on Africa and also other things. He talked about our economy growing by 6%, of course, even after even after Uganda being removed from the AGOA list and, of course, not getting loans from the World Bank. So he says if Ugandans really wake up a bit, our economy can really grow faster and faster, of course, not depending on other European countries and other agencies. But of course, our focus today, we are talking about the 5 SDGs that we really have to focus on, talking about the 54 African countries. That is climate change, creation of jobs, talking about good health and well-being, talking about gender equality, and talking about partnership. Those are some of the things that we are going to be focusing on, of course, within this session. But for now, what is really going to happen, we are coming back for another section that should be after lunch, and the session will be chaired by His Excellency the President of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. A number of dignitaries have really attended this session. I've seen the Prime Minister, Honorable Robin Nabanja. I've seen the former Prime Ministers, John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda. We have seen the third Deputy Prime Minister, Lukia Isanga Nakadama, and other dignitaries. Of course, Dr. Chris Bariomusi, the Honorable Minister for ICT, being the Master of Ceremony, representing here at the session. So, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're watching us from, we shall keep you updated and giving you all the updates on how things will be unfolding at a later time. But for now, I come back to you at the broadcast house.